We're going through the whole of chapter 10, but on the screen you'll see 1 Samuel chapter 10, 21 through 24, and I'll read it. But when they sought Saul, he could not be found. So they inquired of the Lord, "Is there a man still to come?" And the Lord said, "Behold, he has hidden himself among the baggage." Then they ran and took him from there. And Samuel said to all the people, "Do you see whom the Lord has chosen? There is none like him among all the people." And the people shouted, "Long live the king! Long live the king!" And so I entitled this message, "The King in the Baggage." The King in the Baggage. And I want to explore chapter 10 because I think we can see when we unpack chapter 10 how he ended up hiding in the baggage, why he ended up hiding in the baggage. And I believe this isn't just some ancient Near East king that we get to learn about in a historical sense, but I believe it speaks for your life today. So here's how it goes. At the beginning, I said Saul gets anointed by Samuel. It's a private anointing. And Samuel says this, "You shall reign over the people of your Lord, and you will save them from the hand of their surrounding enemies." So in the ancient Near East, specifically in Israel, when they anointed somebody, they would take like a jug and pour this oil over their head. It's a very visceral experience. It's not like what we think of today. If you've seen anointings in church, sometimes they'll take a little bit of olive oil and put it on somebody's forehead. This was like almost like immersion. And you got this oil dripping down. And the oil was a symbol. It was a symbol of God's presence coming upon somebody for a certain time. Now, in the Old Testament, people didn't have the Spirit like we have today. We have a liberal God who has given the Spirit to all who follow him and all who ask and call upon his name, he gives the Spirit to. But in the Old Testament, it was a little different. God would give his Spirit to specific people at specific times to accomplish specific tasks. And here, Saul is getting the symbol of the Spirit. He's God's anointed one, and he's being anointed to save the people from the hand of the surrounding enemies. And now, if you are like Saul, and you remember from last week, he was just out finding his father's donkeys, and through a series of wild events, he comes to meet Samuel, and Samuel anoints him to be king. You might be thinking, I don't know. Who is this Samuel guy? Does he really know what he's talking about? So Samuel does something really helpful. He says, I'm going to give you signs, Saul, so that you will know that this is not just me. This is not just some random guy. This is God's task for you. And he gives him 3 signs. And the signs go like this. You're going to meet somebody at Rachel's tomb. And Rachel's tomb, there's going to be 2 men there. And the 2 men are going to say to you, we've found your donkeys that you're looking for, and your father is looking and concerned for you. So that's the first sign. And then at the Oak of Tabor, you're going to see 3 men. And the 3 men, the first of those men is going to be carrying 3 goats. The second is going to be carrying 3 loaves of bread. And the third is going to be carrying a flask of wine. See how specific this is? Samuel is being very specific about the events, where they're going to take place, who is going to be there. And he said, the person with 3 loaves of bread is going to give you 2, and you're going to accept them. And then after that, you're going to go to Gilead Elohim. And at Gilead Elohim, you are going to encounter a band of prophets. And those prophets are going to see you, and you're going to prophesy among them. And there, at Gilead Elohim, there is a garrison of the Philistines. Okay, so these are very, very specific things. Actually, interestingly, there was this professor at the University of Toronto who did a statistic analysis of how, like, the probability of these events taking place. It's like 1 in 8 million chance that these events would happen just the way they did. And they all came to pass just the way they did. And so the reason why God did that is so that Saul could get a sense this is really the will of God. And so the narrative jumps, and we go to 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 11. And it goes to that part where Saul encounters these prophets. And when all who knew him previously saw how he prophesied with the prophets, the people said to one another, what has come over the son of Kish? What has come over the son of Kish? Now, what happens here is that I think this is really relatable. The Spirit of God came upon Saul. It rushed upon him, and he began prophesying. And then the people said, "Who is this guy? Isn't this the son of Kish?" And it became such that it became a saying, the text says. It became a saying, "Is Saul among the prophets?" And what that meant was when somebody was acting out of character, they would use that as like a saying. If Jim, for instance, began screaming and dancing at the top of his lungs during worship, I'd be like, "Is Saul among the prophets?" Because that's not typically how Jim is, right? Jim's more reserved. And so it became a saying. And the thing is, people were questioning how he was acting in light of the Spirit of God coming upon him. Just want to pause here really quick. When the Spirit of God comes upon you, he's going to empower you to be different. He is going to empower you to be different. And you are going to have naysayers come into your life, and they're going to say something like, "Is this really the way Mike is? Isn't Mike the old mayor?" And they'll dig up some sort of story about the past, about the way Mike used to be. And people try to make us live in the past. They make us live in the shadow of who we once were. But God is calling you, and he's giving you his Spirit to be a new man, a new woman, and he wants you to not be beholden to the crowd. So may I challenge you today, who are you listening to? Are you listening to the call of God over your life? He's calling you. He's raising you up to be different. Are you listening to that? Or are you listening to your family members who constantly say, "That's not like you"? So here's something that we really need to see. One of the details that Samuel said would happen in the third meeting place, Gileath Elohim, he said there's going to be a garrison of the Philistines there. Okay, so this is a really important detail. Gileath Elohim means hill of God. It's in the territory of Israel, okay? So in the territory of Israel, on the hill of God, is a garrison of the Philistines, an enemy outpost. And Samuel saw fit to include this detail in the third prediction. And he said that when the Spirit of the Lord comes upon you, you must go and do what your hand sees fit to do. Now that word, go and do what your hand sees fit to do, is actually an idiom, a Hebrew idiom meaning military action. We see it in Judges 9:32. "Go by night, you and the people who are with you, and set an ambush in the field. Then in the morning, as soon as the sun is up, rise early and rush upon the city. And then when he and the people who are with him come out against you, you may do to them as your hand finds to do." So God told Saul, or through Samuel, he said, "Go to Gileath Elohim. There will be a band of prophets, and right there's going to be an outpost of the Philistines. And when the Spirit comes upon you, go do what your hand finds to do, and God will be with you." So the man who was called to defend Israel from Israel's enemies has the Spirit come upon him at the hill of God, where there's a Philistine outpost, and God says, "Do what your hand finds to do," which is a Hebrew idiom for war. And what does Saul do? Nothing. He doesn't do anything. He goes up the mountain, and he finds his uncle. And his uncle says, "Where have you been? Where have you been?" This is in 1 Samuel 10:16. "Please tell me what Samuel said to you," his uncle said. And Saul said to his uncle, "He told us plainly the donkeys had been found, but about the matter of the kingdom of which Samuel had spoken, he didn't tell him anything." Okay, so just think about how crazy this is. You get anointed to be prince by Samuel in a series of spectacular events. Then he confirms it with a series of 3 spectacular events. And then you come to your uncle and you say, when he asks, "What did Samuel tell you?" You say, "He told us the donkeys were found." Right? Something's up. And what I want to suggest to you is the reason why he said that is because he knew that he hadn't fulfilled the expectation. If he had told his uncle, "Yeah, like the Spirit of the Lord was going to come upon me, and I was supposed to do what my hand found to do, and the Philistines were there, I was supposed to attack," his uncle would be like, what are you doing here? Why didn't you do that? So he just stays quiet. He stays quiet. And then finally, Samuel says to Saul, meet me at Mizpah. Meet me at Mizpah, and I'm going to gather all of the people of Israel. Okay, so Saul is at Mizpah, all the people of Israel there, and Samuel's there. Now, the people of Israel don't really know why they're gathered. They have a suspicion. They asked for a king. They've been asking Samuel for a king, so they're probably talking amongst themselves. Why are we gathered? Maybe today is the day we're going to get a king, right? And so what kind of a speech do you think Samuel should be giving on the day of the new coronation of the first king of Israel? I would say it would go something like this, like, behold, Israel, today we enter the dynasty of the Israelite kingdom. It's a very monumentous day. You know, God has brought us so far. You know, a very like heroic speech. Here's the words he says, though. I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and I delivered you from the hands of the Egyptians and from the hand of the kingdoms that were oppressing you. But today you have rejected God, who saves you from all your calamities and distresses. You have said to him, set a king over us. Imagine that. You gather and he says, today you have rejected God. And then he says, come, gather together by your tribes. Okay, so here's what's interesting. The address is pretty pessimistic. It sounds like maybe something negative is happening. You've rejected your God today. Well, if you're an Israelite, you would know by what's been asked of them to gather in their tribes and to cast lots, that this is exactly what happened in Achan's story in the book of Joshua. Achan was told to not loot from the enemy. When they defeated their enemy, there was going to be all of this treasure, but Israel was told to not take any. However, Achan took some, and he hid it in his tent. And they gathered together. They gathered the people together after Achan had stolen the stuff and put it in his tent, and they gathered exactly like this, by tribe and by family, and they cast lots until it came down to Achan himself, and then they found Achan's stuff hidden in the tent, and then they killed Achan. Okay, and so now, fast forward here, you have Samuel addressing the people of Israel, and he says, you have rejected God, gather by tribes. What are you thinking? If you're Saul, you're like, oh, God had asked me, he'd given me a spirit to go on a mission for him. I didn't do it. And now we've gathered here together, and they're narrowing down the people just like they did in the time of Achan. I think my head's on the chopping block. So what's he do? He goes and hides in the baggage. He hides in the baggage because he felt he had failed. That's my perspective of this passage. And what happens is really interesting. They bring him out, and he gets a crown. And they said of their king, who had just been hiding in fear, behold our king, long live the king. Kind of anticlimactic, if you ask me. Instead of having a bold and courageous warrior, that's what Saul looked like. He was taller than everybody, stronger than everybody, more good looking than everybody. He looked like that, but he was hiding in the baggage. And that's who they have to say, behold our king, long live the king. Okay, so this is our story, and I hope you can kind of see the historical background of what's been going on. And now I want to ask you this. How many of you are hiding in the baggage? You're hiding in the baggage. God has poured his spirit upon all believers. If you've confessed God, you said, I believe in you, God. I desire to live my life after you. He's going to give you his spirit. He has given you his spirit. And his spirit comes upon people for action and activity, just like it came upon Saul. What has he whispered to you? How is he whispering to you today? Are you following his call, or are you living in the shadow of the crowd who said, is this not the son of Kish? Are you following the crowd, or are you following the Spirit's call upon you? Are you fearful and hiding in the baggage, or are you willing to step out courageously and do something bold for the God who called you? God didn't call you to be king like he did Saul, but he called you for something even greater than an earthly kingship. He called you to be his son. Have you accepted the identity of the sonship of God? Have you accepted that identity? Or are you walking in some old identity that's informed by your failures, just like Saul was? He thought back to his failures. He thought, I couldn't possibly be king right now. God is about to smite me. He was hiding from his crown. Are you hiding from your crown? Let me tell you about your crown. You have a crown that invites you to be a son of God. You have a crown that invites you to be forgiven. You have been forgiven. You have been redeemed. That means that when Christ went on the cross, he bought you back. As you are in your sin, he bought you back. You have been redeemed. Are you living out of the identity of somebody that's been redeemed? Or are you living in the shadow of your sin as if you have not been redeemed? You've been called to be set free, to be enlarged. Are you allowing the Spirit of God to enlarge you, or do you keep allowing the voice of the enemy to keep you down? Let me tell you a story. There was a missionary named Gladys. She was just a young girl from England, and she was a maid. And she came to know the Lord in a revival meeting where she heard about the people of China who did not know Jesus by the millions. And God laid it on her heart that somebody, perhaps her, needed to go and preach the gospel. And so she went to the China Inland Mission to get training. And you know what they told her after she submitted her request? They said, Gladys, I'm sorry, you've been rejected. You're not, your grades are not good enough. Your capacity for learning a language is not good enough. And we deemed you, this is a quote, unfit for missions. We deemed you unfit for missions. And so Gladys was deeply wounded by that. She had thought she had heard God call her. But she had this heart, this burning heart. And so she sought to find somebody else. So she was calling her family and her friends. She's like, you got to go. She even said, I will support you. I will support you with my money to send you to go. And one day her brother said to her, well, Gladys, if you're so desperate for somebody to go, just go yourself. And so she began saving her money. She saved every last penny. And she couldn't get a safe ship ride to China. She had to take the train through war-torn Russia. She gets on the train and she gets off in this war-torn country, and they see her passport. It says missionary, but the person reading it couldn't understand the term missionary. He read machinist, and that town happened to need a machinist. So they took her and they put her under house arrest. And because they wanted this machinist, unfortunately, she was just a missionary. And she escapes and flees to this sailboat. And just as she's putting her foot on board, the officers grab her. And she puts her hand in her pocket, and there was just this one coin. That's all she had. And she offered her one coin to the officers, and they took it as a bribe. And she set foot on that sail ship. And the captain of that ship, he had to do some clever maneuvering. He was on her side. He wanted to see her go. But he had to declare her his prisoner in order to get out of the territory. So he declared her his prisoner, and she finally gets to China. She goes to her destination where she was planning to go, and she meets the lady she was going to work with. And the lady says, "Who are you?" Imagine getting greeted after that long, arduous journey, and you're finally there. You're ready to be like, they're going to run towards you, slow motion, And, it's who are you? And she has to begin by being an innkeeper. And she was like, what in the world, God? This has been so not what I was expecting. But then interestingly, do you remember how, like in China, they had like a foot binding tradition for women? Well, the Chinese government at the time wanted to outlaw that. And they had heard about this woman, Gladys, who had unbound feet And they said to her, because of the good rapport that she had, we want to use you. We want to hire you to be an advocate to women in the villages, to go around and explain what unbound feet really are like, to explain that it's a good thing and that you can still be respected. And so Gladys got hired by the government to go around into the villages to be their advocate. On one condition, she said, as long as I can share about my Jesus, as long as I can share the gospel. And so she ran around to all these villages, and God used her in a mighty way. She had a band of orphans that had attached around her. And during the war came to their village, and she took 100 of those orphans over a mountainous journey and rescued them. God used Gladys, the one who was unfit for missions. She was deemed unfit for missions. My point is, how are you perceiving yourself? Do you perceive yourself as unfit, too old? No skills that are relevant? I would say to you, do not look at your resume. Look to God the Father. How is he speaking to you? What is he asking you to do? And say, God, if you're asking me to do it, I need your strength. I need your power. I need your boldness. And then go. He's given you the Spirit. Now, let me explain to you just one thing. This is like a little analogy, that illustration or whatever. I feel like God just kind of dropped it in my head. Probably stole it from somewhere. But the Spirit of God is like the wind, and you're like the sailboat. You're like the sail captain. He gives you the wind, and you got to decide whether you're going to put your sail up. Sometimes when we look out at the seas, they're looking awfully choppy, and we got this beautiful wind, but we're looking ahead, and we're like, I'm not putting my sail up, not in this wind. I'm not going to do it. And I believe that's what Saul did when he came to Gibeath Elohim, and the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he was in the presence of the Philistine garrison. He knew what he was supposed to do, but it looked too scary, it looked too intimidating, so he didn't act. Okay? How many times is that us? We feel that God has called us. He's given us the wind of his Spirit, and we look out ahead, and we're like, oh, but I can't do that. Okay? God is calling you to greatness. Here's the last thing I'm going to say. Holy Spirit, help me. The last thing I'm going to say is this. Saul failed, right? His first task, he failed, but he got a crown. He got a crown. God was still giving him another chance. God is faithful with you. You may have failed time and time again, okay? You may be like, God has given me numerous chances, and I continuously have not stepped up and acted where he's asked me to act. Don't disqualify yourself. God is waiting to partner with you. Will you put up your sails, catch the wind of the Spirit, and go and make a change in this world for God?